Welcome to The Sign Off, the marketing podcast for marketing people who want to chat about marketing. Every 2 weeks, we'll be chatting about a topic and how brands are using it to see if we'll give it the sign off. I'm Liz Hawkins.
And I'm Lydia Jones. We've made marketing and now we teach marketing and are generally a little obsessed about marketing. So if you want to listen to two Gen Xers talk about marketing in today's crazy old world, stick around.
This episode is on AI, and we're hoping that our robot overlords are kind to us. So what do we think? Now, when I started looking at this, and I know that I come from a very different angle from you because I tend to do a lot more digital than you do.
Yeah, I don't care about digital.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should. We can edit that out. I care deeply about digital. Sorry, robot overlords.
So I teach, optimization, digital customer experience, and way back when we start to talk about digital, we start to talk about the change in big data, and we use that phrase, I can't tell you how often, and it's so over. Big data is like, it's the norm now. Mm-hmm. We can process huge amounts of data, and AI is exceptional at doing that for us, and we can set algorithms. We don't have to manually plan customer journey anymore.
No.
It can help, and it can smooth the customer journey, or it can add friction. It can significantly reduce the human interaction, which makes it more reliable, a better experience. I mean, I haven't got a problem with that side of it. But then I really have an issue when we start to do stuff that's creative. So copy, content, imagery, because I do feel that that's a human thing. However, that said, I do like the way it can expedite campaigns in that you can show a client what something would look like. So you can transfer the idea that's in your head very cheaply and cost effectively to this is what it would potentially look like by using AI, by saying, I want a ghost ship and it's got to be old looking, and whatever it is that you can describe, it can show you, so you can communicate more effectively with your clients.
Yes.
But I still think that the creative side of it should be a human endeavour.
Wow. This is a deep philosophical question, Liz. Are you ready for it?
Go for it.
So I was having some time off when ChatGPT launched back in the end of 2022, I think it launched, didn't it?
We all freaked out, yes.
And there was a kind of, oh my God, it's amazing. Oh my God, it's the Terminator,
Not quite reaction at the university. The university was, oh my God, every student is never going to hand in a piece of work that's their own.
Well, aside from cheating on essays and dissertations and things like that, that is obviously a challenge. I sort of played around with it a little bit and I thought, this is quite interesting, It's like a kind of a souped up Google, I suppose. Yep. And, you play around with prompts and then there was this like sort of tranche of marketing people and strategy people coming on LinkedIn and saying, these are the best prompts in order to get at, the best out of ChatGPT, and there's this whole thing about educating you how to get better results. Yeah. And then Midjourney came along, which is the image thing. And now actually ChatGPT has got a kind of Midjourney thing in it as well, which is, I want a skateboarder in the style of Rembrandt, and then bloop, it'll happen. Mm-hmm. And so for your point about like mocking up, I mean, just working in an ad agency, you do a lot of mocking up to prove to clients that the idea that we're eventually going to make is going to be good.
Yeah,
right?
There's almost like a proof of concept for you. So because trying to describe an image to somebody that's not creative or not in a creative space, it's really quite difficult. Because I do remember that being client side and having our agency come in with an idea, and their creative director sat on the other side of the table with drawings, and I'm sat there going, because I'm not in that space, it's really difficult to make that leap.
Yes.
Whereas if you got mocked it up and in full Technicolor and it looks amazing, you're like, oh yeah, I can buy that.
So the danger is, what is the difference between a mock-up and a final bit of creative, right? And we used to have like tissue sessions, right, where it was literally on like, I mean, the whole thing about tissue sessions, it was on like drawing paper, kind of tracing paper-ish, and it was very rough. And then it was really to sort of communicate or help support the sort of concept.
Yep.
And if you get the concept, okay, then you go on and, you do the storyboard or something.
Yep.
And then the storyboard would get signed off, and then you would actually go to a director and you go to a production company and you spend all the money and make the thing, right? And going from drawing board to I'm going to drop £500,000 on a production or however much money it would be, it's quite a significant leap. So then there was a lot of we've got Photoshop now, and we've got very talented graphic designers who have gone to university and they're basically mock-up people. In a lot, I don't want to denigrate graphic designers at all, because actually they should be used for other stuff, but a lot of their job was could you mock this up, can you mock that up, can you mock this up, and it just got better and better and better, so much so that one client, I'm not going to name names obviously, but one client, there was a sort of legal wrangling that happened where he fired the agency, but he still had the mock-up, and he just ran the mock-up as the ad. And me, as a creative who knew what the final, or could imagine what the final thing would be, but,
Mortified or horrified?
Well, it's embarrassing, really, because the mock-up was so bad in my eyes, because I could imagine what the actual... But that was my job, day in, day out, to imagine what things could be. So I think, and I'm with you, Liz, in the sense of when AI becomes so good that it's better than a human imagination. So in my little wormhole down into the AI world... And when we're recording this in, I don't know what, mid-October? Is it mid-October? I don't know. But last week, the founder of DeepMind, he is now Sir Demis Hassabis.
Okay.
And he studied computer science at Cambridge, and then he went to, I think it was UCL, and he did cognitive neuroscience, okay? But he did that very... deliberately, because as a teenager he wanted to create what they call it's not artificial intelligence, it's called artificial general intelligence. It's basically equal or better to human intelligence. So he's just won the Nobel Prize for chemistry. Do you know about this?
No, keep going.
And how he trained his thing, he was also a game designer, he's also a chess player, and he was as a child, under 10s chess champion or something like that for Britain.
And then you're going to go, he's a psychopath.
No, he's not a psychopath. He's actually the one in The Guardian yesterday was saying that actually, if AI goes wrong, it's a bigger threat, or as big a threat as a global pandemic or nuclear war, right?
Yeah,
so
no, I can see that.
We were slow off the mark with climate change, and we're still not mitigating that properly. So we need to get early on this, right? But yet he spent his entire life working towards coming up with an AI. So he started off with AlphaGo. You know the board game Go?
Yep.
It's more complicated than chess because it's more conceptual. It's more human and imaginative, whereas you can just kind of brute force chess in a way. His machine beat the world champion in 2016 and came up with brand new strategies that no Go player has ever thought of before. And Go is 2,000 years old. Okay.
Crikey.
Yeah. Then he created AlphaZero because because AlphaGo was basically trained with all of the games that have been played. So he wanted to see whether or not the system would be able to learn with no prior knowledge, like a baby.
Yeah.
And so this is where it's kind of getting terrifying. So AlphaZero, he set it going in the morning on, I think it was Go, I'm not sure. And within 9 hours, it was chess actually, sorry. Within 9 hours, halfway through the day, he came back and he could probably still beat the machine, right? And in 9 hours, it was the best chess player the world has ever seen.
Crikey.
9 hours. Deep Blue beat the Russian champion in the 90s or whatever. It took them decades to do that. He did it in 9 hours. So this sort of rapid rate of change is so phenomenal. And anyway, But he's deploying it for one of these like foundational biology problems.
Yeah.
It's called the protein unfolding problem, where we're going to get super technical here, but it's very, very amazing. And it's about time saving. Okay,
Yeah.
so stay with me, Liz. Are you with me? Come on.
I'm just freaked out with the whole biology thing because I in my head I've made the leap from lots of ones and zeros and chess because you're right, it's quite formulaic in that I could imagine a computer or AI learning it in that time. But then in my head I've made the leap from actually the genome is only so many ones and zeros, and yes, it took us however long it took us to map the genome, and I can see that doing it in a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
And I'm freaked out because I don't think anything should do it that quickly.
Okay, well, the application that that won him the Nobel Prize was this. So a protein, if I'm understanding this right, and I'm not a biologist, but basically a protein can be a line of molecules, just like the DNA strands,
Yeah.
right? DNA strands is just a line of things,
Yeah.
ones and zeros effectively, but each one is a complicated molecule, and there's like millions of them in there, and then in nature it kind of folds itself into these beautiful patterns, and they're like swirls or like little flower petals or whatever, and it's incredibly complex and biologists themselves have been able to like decode these proteins. But he was saying about how one PhD student, biologist, will be able to do one over their PhD. So what's that, 4 or 5 years? Okay.
Yeah.
And there's 200 million of them. So basically it's like 1 billion PhD hours would need to be expended before we've decoded all of the proteins in our bodies. And his machine has already done it.
Oh my God.
He's already done it. So what happens is that, and I think basically every single biologist, I think it's like 2 million people have already, he believes that this is science. So he's combined academia with sort of startup, because academia is kind of slow.
Yeah.
But it's
Absolutely.
very pure. We do science for science sake. The scientific method is amazing. It's like one of the best inventions humans have come up with. And so he's his company, DeepMind, which is now owned by Google, combined like startup fastness with like academic purity. And so he basically said, right, they publish all of their papers, like all of their academic papers is like one of the most cited. And he published it, and therefore all of these biologists can now use all of this data. So that's why he won the Nobel Prize.
Fair dues.
And the applications are thus like, okay, now we can kind of develop drugs that don't have any side effects because we can target one specific bit of the protein. This is where my biological knowledge is like, I'm reaching the edge of my knowledge.
No, I can see that. I can see how you would bespoke create protocols for particular drugs, particular diseases. But then I'm making the leap of it starts to go into, well, what human traits do become undesirable? And do you start to be able to design and all that? And then it starts to, for me, fall into the eugenics thing.
Yeah, massively. So, like, do we think as a society that, I don't know.
But it's not a society. It's one guy.
Well, it is one guy. But the thing is, it's that he's not deciding what the drug companies do with it, right? He's just providing the tools and the technology in order to make this massive discovery and this massive unlock. And then it's up to the scientific community to do it and the drug companies or whatever. I mean, my crazy, like, science fiction, I've watched too many James Bond movies, brain goes to, well, if you can design a drug that's highly targeted, then surely you can design a poison that's highly targeted.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, it's the argument, isn't it? If you have a hammer, you can either bash someone's head in with it or like drill, like put up a net of curtains, which is what I need to do after my dog destroyed my blinds yesterday. Anyway, but I was heartened.
Oh, right. You were positively heartened. By
I was positively heartened. I've actually watched a lot of his interviews, and he's very measured, and he's very thoughtful about the application, because it is a humongous revolution it is the next industrial revolution. Like, it's coming.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Letting that go into the science community, but you're letting it go everywhere. There's no kind of boundaries for it, and you're not saying who can use it and who can't use it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's difficult, isn't it? And like other tech, yeah.
I think that's what freaks me out. I think AI just has no boundaries. It's doing its thing, and people are picking it up and doing different stuff with it. And if you used it strictly for data mining and data stuff, like fraud and fraud preventions and all that kind of stuff, it feels safer, it feels more useful, it feels more controlled, and it feels for the benefit of. Whereas this sort of stuff and using it for creativity and really gives me the heebie-jeebies.
And I think historically, a natural reaction is to be fearful of new technology. Definitely. I mean, and this is where all of the tech bro, AI, Ayn Rand loving libertarians in Silicon Valley are like, we can't have any legislation and we can't have any restrictions, and we just have to trust that the market will sort it out and all of that. And it's not. It's like, look at social media, for example.
Yeah, I was about to say, we've just got such a great track record of that. We're very good at that, obviously.
Yeah.
And you're right, social media is probably one of the massive examples of where private enterprise has no very, very few restrictions, and it has damaged, I won't say one generation, but maybe at least two.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, Jonathan Haidt's new book is about that very thing, about how we've just done basically a 10-year experiment with our children, letting them have smartphones and social media at such a young age when their brains aren't fully formed, where they should be actually learning how to interact with their peers, looking them in the eye and seeing, if I'm mean to them, their face
changes
and, that doesn't feel good for me, and therefore I won't do that. Whereas if I'm mean to them via an Instagram post, I can't see their reaction.
No.
And it's like we're interrupted a fundamental human development stage, and it's massively dangerous. And and it's also the promise of, social media, you can catch up with your old school friends that you might never see again, and you can make friends across the world. And yes, there is that, obviously, but there is the whole we actually need to help our children develop empathy.
The other thing is, as we were talking the other week, about the silo effect and this virtuous cycle of completely reassuring you that your point of view is the right point of view and the only point of view, and it's going to win. And when it doesn't happen, there is a sharp shock. And we saw it at the was it the 2019 election, where there was that US issue, the 6th of January, was it?
Something like
that.
And
there are people in that virtual cycle thinking that their side are going to win, because there is no, objective truth. There's no unvarnished or unpolished or place where you get an unbiased opinion.
And that is really dangerous. It used to be that information was transmitted, here are the facts, and then you make up your own opinion. And so you end up being able, and this is partly what university is about, right? Here's some information, and now you get to develop your own way of critically analysing and having a discourse. Whereas actually the media, because it's driven by clicks and views, it has to evoke emotion. And basically we've gone from here's the information, and we're going to tell you what your opinion is as well. So this is why all of these conspiracy theories are not niche anymore.
No.
I mean, I was
the
having
Flat Earth Society is huge.
the inability to have a discourse and still not think that your opponent is not only wrong, but 100% wrong. And because you're wrong, you're an idiot. Yeah. And I'm not going to even respect you as a human being. And that's really dangerous.
Massively. I mean, it goes back to that point you were making about looking somebody in the eye and going, I'm being mean to you, and I understand that I'm now hurting your feelings, but also being able to look at somebody in the eye and go, actually, you're a human being, you're allowed to have your own thoughts and feelings, and also, and hold the same thought in my head that you can actually have different thoughts to me, and we could still be friends about it.
Yeah.
But that seems to have gone. That middle ground has disappeared.
Yes, a little bit. One of the great scientists of the modern day, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Are you familiar with his work?
Massively.
I love him. He's so great. He makes me feel optimistic. Actually, he one of his greatest videos is when or search it on the internet. It's brilliant. It's called like The Most Astounding Fact I Know. And he talks about how we're all kind of, every atom on this planet, including you and me and this mug or whatever, is made from the guts of exploding stars. Right? That's how the solar system was made. We're all star babies, basically. And it's quite a mind-blowing thing to think about when you think about it, right? How is these brains are made of star guts, or how are we having conscious thought? And so one of the lines in this interview question is like, some people look up at the stars and they feel small because the universe is big, and they're small, right? He looks up at the stars and he feels big because the universe is within us.
Yeah.
And that's all. And then he goes on to say, that's all anybody wants to feel. We want to feel part of something. We want to feel connected. And that's why things like support groups for, I don't know, sexual assault or something, or, you know, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous.
It's so powerful.
You know, because we recognise in each other that we have shared experiences. And so, this is a very roundabout way of saying, if we leave creativity to the machines, so give me a lovely painting, or give me the 11th season of Friends, or give me Star Wars, but make Darth Vader my ex-girlfriend and I'm Luke Skywalker or something, like this sort of hyper personalization, we're going to lose some of that shared experience. Yeah. And I'm like trying to drag it back to marketing and brands. But like, you know, people watch the Super Bowl all together. And it's like one of the rare times that people think, oh, I'm going to watch the ads as well. And everyone talks about what ads did what. And it's a big viewing experience. Same with Christmas in our country.
Yes.
Oh, have you seen the John Lewis ad? Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And so like, where are those shared experiences going to be? Because we all like, you know, if you're on a date, you haven't been on a date for a while, I imagine.
No. Although I did have date night the other week. Date night?
What did you talk about? Oh, I don't want to know.
It was very, very sad. But go on, I bet your date nights are much, much better than mine.
Not really. But anyway, I mean, the standard stuff on like, you know, you run out of conversation about like, what do you do, what do you like? But then you talk about like what TV shows you like. What books have you read? Or did you see that film in the cinema, or those kind of shared cultural experiences, or what do you think about, I don't know, Love Island or whatever, you know, like those shared cultural experiences are at risk of disappearing if we disappear into this curated, personalised, AI is just giving me whatever I want world. And maybe people in the future will look back and think, what, you all watch the same TV show? Oh.
They do now. When I talked to some of my students about the fact we only had 4 channels, they were like, what?
you watch what you
And one
watch?
of those didn't have adverts.
Yeah. And one of them ended at 6 p.m. and we looked at a little girl with a chalkboard.
Yeah. And then I'm, really? And I'm like, yeah. But we also went out. We had friends and we talk about things that they cannot conceive of. Things like, you know, you said you'd meet your mate at 6 o'clock at the shopping mall and you would be there at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
And if you were late,
they were
your
pissed.
friend, and your friend hung around and waited for you because they assumed you were coming.
Mm-hmm. There wasn't like location tracking on like, oh, I'm just 5 minutes away, I share location.
And you know, you had the humiliating experience of answering the house phone and having that stilted conversation with your friend.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore.
No.
In fact, there's that funny meme.
Or you had to talk to your friend's parents. That's even worse.
And that whole Kevin and Perry thing comes in. Hello, Mr. Pedersen.
How are you?
But
how's your schoolwork doing?
But you did have that shared experience, and your family knew what was happening because you lived your life together. Whereas actually, I'm sure there's huge chunks of children's lives that their parents don't know about because it's served up on that device on a social network.
Yeah.
So we are losing
And even as a parent, you're on the same social network as your child.
You're not going to see everything they post.
You're not going to see anything that they post. You're not going to see anything that they're seeing.
No.
You know, I mean, God forbid, like, you have a teenage son, he goes into the incel world and, you know, he's being served all that Andrew Tate crap and, you know, like, being poisoned by all of that stuff. Like, what a nightmare. I mean, that's why I'm pleased I don't have children, but, like, one of the reasons.
But that algorithm is really powerful. And what we're seeing with AI is that it's now not just on a platform. That hyper-personalization you're talking about is now being driven across device, across media, and you're losing that. Also, you're losing that ability to decide for yourself what you want to watch and what you want to see.
Well, have we ever had that, really? I mean, like, in traditional oldie world, when, like, there were newspapers and newspaper editors, like, it was their job. They were the gatekeepers. Yeah. They were the Guardian. The Guardian. That's why the Guardian's called the Guardian, right?
Yeah.
To decide what is news and what isn't news. I mean, the famous thing. I mean, I'm going to have such a I don't know, what's the word? Snob, nerd.
Depends what you're going to say.
I'm going to quote Citizen Kane. What does that mean?
Okay, just do it and maybe nobody will notice. Keep it on the DL.
In Citizen Kane, there's a scene where, like, his newspaper editor comes in and he's like, "Why? I've seen there's news in the other paper. Why haven't we got it on our front page?" And the guy goes, "Well, the news wasn't big enough." And he goes, "If you make the headline big enough, the news becomes big enough." And it's this idea that we have always been, I mean, like, before newspapers and the printing press, we had, like, town criers and, like, travelling minstrels come along. "Oh, what's happening in the next town? Oh, we'll sing you a song about it." Like, that's news, right?
I'm assuming, yeah, you're right. There's always been influence, but it hasn't been so prolifically across all platforms, though.
No, I mean, the access to whatever you want, whatever you can think of, is kind of bewildering. And I don't think our brains are definitely not evolved for that. We're evolved for hunter-gathering, you know, like, we're really good at, like, spotting a berry in a bush and, like, seeing maybe that's a deer over there, like, that's about it. And like, oh my God, that might be a snake, let's run away, you know.
Yeah. But I also think the fact that, you know, when we're talking about newspapers, and actually you would have that conversation with your family and friends about the news, and you would be able to develop that critical discussion, whereas that doesn't happen anymore. When was the last time you had a conversation with somebody about somebody that said something on TikTok, apart from pointing and laughing at it or liking it and moving on?
Do you want to know what's on my TikTok?
No.
Well, it's mostly like book reviews, because that's all I do on TikTok, is I read books and then I review them. I do a bit of poetry as well, but, like, sometimes I get, on Facebook, actually, I've got a very different algorithm feeding me stuff. It's really funny. I find it really funny. Have you got this? Have you got, like, North Sea videos where, like, there's a massive ship in the North Sea and it's really rough and there's doom, dong, and, like, waves everywhere?
I also get the one where they're throwing food over the side of a oil rig and all the sharks come and eat it.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
I get that all the time. I don't know what that is.
I can one-up you on that. Do you get any horse content? You said you liked racehorsing.
Loads of it.
What kind of content do you get around horses?
I get show jumping. I get equestrianism. I don't get any kind of naughty content, if that's what you...
No, I'm not suggesting that kind of content, you know, like, this is a PG podcast with the F word in it, but, like...
No, I don't get weird.
The weird content I get is horse hoof cleaning.
Oh, yeah, no, I get that.
Oh, you get that?
Some weird Chinese guy.
Not just me.
Some weird Chinese guy doing it.
Oh, I haven't heard the Chinese guy.
Doing donkeys. He just cut donkeys' feet, not horses' feet.
Oh.
I get the Spanish guy that does horses' feet.
I get just really attractive men doing it, which is odd considering that's not really my thing.
No.
But, like, the hoof GP, him, I think he's from Wales.
Does cows.
Scotland, that's the one.
Yes.
Cows. Because that's where the algorithm took me. I had, like, oh, these are people that keep horses. Oh, he's going to say hello to his horse. The horse is nice, got a rug on, la la la, jumping horses. And then
poorly foot.
And then, oh, this is what it looks like to reshoe a horse. Oh, you like this stuff, do you? What about cows?
Donkeys.
I haven't had donkeys yet. I'm not there.
I've had the whole thing. Goats, donkeys, everything. Oh, I even had a wild boar of how you trim it.
Do you reckon?
I was like, I need an out.
Do you know what? If AI takes your job as a creative, let's say, a PowerPoint slide creative, that's what I do, you can go and be a farrier.
I could. I have
could.
watched enough content.
Me
I think.
too. Or a spot squeezer, because that's the other thing.
See, I don't get that as much.
I've gone off it because Dr. Pimple Popper was my go-to, and then she went to a premium model, so she stopped all of her free content.
Oh God,
I know it's terrible.
Anyway,
Anyway,
how would you expect your children? I said I get paid to pop other people's spots while they film me.
it's a legitimate job. It's a dermatologist.
Do you know what I think? She's been forced off by all the Asian.
Yeah, my sister's well into that. Sorry, Laura, I've outed you. It's a hidden shame secret. But those are too much for me. She showed me a video once. It's so close up on and you can see literally the hole where the pore is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, no. I have to say that
even for me, I've got a very high tolerance for gunk and body. I should have been a doctor or something. I mean, that's kind of a more useful job than being a marketer. But anyway, okay.
So I think to round up, I think we're okay with data mining and that sort of stuff without it going too far. But the too far is a bit weird. We're not very good with. We're not happy with the whole creative side.
I'm definitely not.
Are we okay with the kind of ethical side? Because one of the boundaries that we don't have is, and AI doesn't have, is this idea of bias. And we also don't know who owns whatever you've prompted out of AI.
Yeah, and this is where it's kind of getting into science fiction territory, because I mean, pretty much all science fiction is robots are bad and they're going to kill us. I mean,
Elon Musk, I strongly recommend you watch iRobot.
I'm sure he has, and that's probably why he's doing it, because he's Mr.
launched
Contrary.
He launched it on Thursday, and I have to say, he did a very, very good job of replicating them in the white and black. They looked almost identical.
It's been a while since I've seen that film. It's Will Smith, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, I was a very impressionable 10-year-old, and my 15-year-old sister allowed me to watch The Terminator at 10.
That freaked you out.
I have been physiologically changed by that. My cells have rewritten themselves. That was how profoundly affected I was.
Oh my God.
I think I couldn't go upstairs by myself for about 2 years because I thought there was a man in my bedroom who come from the future to play. Yeah, I was a very imaginative child. But anyway, so Terminator is obviously if you haven't seen Terminator, what are you doing? Off you go. Go and watch it, come back and listen to this podcast. But it's brilliant. I mean, it was James Cameron who did it. And then he did Terminator 2, which personally I think is a better sequel than Terminator, but still amazing concept. The rest of the movies, Terminator 3, are all sort of quite rubbish. But Terminator 1 and 2 are brilliant. The end of Terminator 3, okay, is... Have you seen Terminator 3?
Yeah, isn't that the one where Skynet goes...
Yeah, Judgment
viral?
Day happens. Okay, so the whole thing is the future's not set. Fate is what you make, and they're trying to stop the computers, the machines they call them, from ever happening. And they try various different things, and then the machines are fighting back as well. Anyway, the spoiler warning, the end of Terminator 3, that great sequel with the woman one who wore high heels. The robot wore high heels and a really tight-fitting leather jacket.
They can do human better than The Weeknd.
What the fuck? It's so unnecessary. But anyway, poor actress. But anyway, the whole thing is Judgment Day, they're going to let it happen, and the nuclear war happens, and the whole thing is we need to get to this base in order to shut down the mainframe. And the whole thing is there is no mainframe. The system is diffuse and everywhere. And this is the thing with our AI, is that there is no off switch. There is no mainframe. And so it's happening, right? The genie's out of the
There's
bottle.
no curbing it because it's out. You're right. It's out there. It's not like there's one body you can speak to, or there's
No,
a
it's not like, oopsie, the AI is not working, so we're just going to go to the basement and turn the switch off. Like, that's not really a reality. And so there's this thing about, like, Meta announced a couple of months ago that Llama is their thing. I don't know why they call it Llama, but anyway. They're trying to open source it in the sense that, and their sort of philosophy, and like, yeah, I pulled that face as well. Their philosophy is Unix and Linux were the first kind of open source, like, mainframe programming thing. Like, I don't know. But now Linux is the industry standard, okay? Yep. And it's their play to make Meta's AI the industry standard. And they're saying, look, because it's transparent, it's more able to be... it's more secure because it's more transparent.
Robust.
And it's more robust, and everybody can see how it works, and there's no hidden, like, agendas. There's no, like, evil genius that can come in and, like, put in a USB thing and now it's, like, programmed to kill everybody. Like, that's the theory.
I'm sure that the person that wrote Linux probably wrote that in.
It's a back door. I don't know. Like, you know, like in Hackers or something like that.
There's always a USB.
Back door or whatever. How open do we want this thing? And this sort of, like, the utopians or the optimists are like, it's going to be amazing, it's going to transform everything, it's going to automate everything, all of the human drudgery is going to be taken away, there's going to be no more labouring, there's going to be no more, like, stupid, pointless jobs, we can all just be free to be what? And then the what thing is, they don't know. We're going to be servants for billionaires or massage therapists and we'll all just turn into psychologists for the poor children that are going to be trapped in the...
Not being funny, but the optimism of it's going to be all right. History tells us we are not, as humans, we are not good at doing that.
No.
So I do think that at some point, somewhere down the line, someone needs to have the conversation about what we do and what we don't do and what we should do and what we shouldn't do.
Well, there are conversations happening.
Which does give me a little bit more confidence, I have to say.
The guy, Demis
Hassabis, yes. What did he say?
Demis Hassabis, yes, DeepMind guy. So he is signed a treaty, basically. Not really a treaty, but a sort of open letter or something in an official capacity about ethics. And how do we inject our values into AI? And then there's the question, and this is a philosophical question.
I'm assuming that's a rhetorical question. He's thrown it out there, and that's where we're up to. We're expecting people to come and engage with that.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, because it's so nascent. Like, we're not at human level intelligence yet.
And let's just remember, we talk about machine learning and all that sort of, where it learns by itself, but it's not sentient. It's not like it's a real human. It's learning, and it learns within the parameters that you set it.
Yes, in a way. Although the whole, like, it created new strategies for Go that no one has ever thought of is amazing, let's just say. I mean, it is astonishing, let's say. I mean, if you'd...
But that doesn't transfer from Go to chess to Game of Life to Mousetrap.
Well, that's what they're aiming for.
Yeah, but...
They're aiming for general intelligence, so, artificial general intelligence. So you're a machine, and basically I can say, right, can you solve Fermat's equation or Fermat's theorem or paradox or whatever it was, which basically one dude has done like 200 years later, and he used maths that wasn't around when Fermat did it, so it's not actually a real solution. Sorry, maths nerd here, but...
Just cheated a bit there then, did he?
Well, it's not technically cheating because he did it, but... Anyway.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying is knowledge isn't sentience.
No, it's not. It's what do you do with it? And what do you use? Like, and then it becomes a even bigger philosophical question, like, what is life? As in, what do we do with our lives? What is a good life? Is it a sense of achievement? Is it a sense of mastery? Is it a sense of contentment? Is it being comfortable? I mean... There's billions of people on this planet who are living on, I don't know, less than $10 a day, who are like scratching a living in the earth, and they don't get... I mean, if you give them an AI, their lives will be completely and 100% transformed.
I mean, there are countries that use happiness as their GDP.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know whether that comes with the fact that we don't have to work anymore, that we work more on our own happiness. But good point you say about how do people do that, and actually there is research to show it is the challenge, it is the endeavour, because if you don't have that focus and you don't have that drive, what do? You sit around eating McDonald's, playing on gaming.
Yeah.
So I guess for me,
is it a genie?
It's way out of the bowl. It's not coming back.
Well, let me frame it. So, when we're going to propose, do we give it the sign off? So, first of all, is it a genie as in it's a thing that we can use to grant our wishes and woo, it's amazing, da da da? Or is it Pandora's box where literally everything awful came out and they left hope inside? Like, that's the horrendous story of Pandora's box.
Yeah, no. That's a good analogy, though, between the two.
Thank you.
From my perspective, history tells us that we are really, really not good with technology. And we seem to fall always, well, not always, but we seem to fall into Pandora's box rather than the genie of, it's going to make our life better. So I would have to say that, does it get the sign off? I don't think I've got anything to sign off on because it's gone. It's one of those. It's in the newspaper. You're not signing it off. It's printed.
It's already in market.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Oops.
It's not. Oh shit. Yeah. We put the ad live before we got the client sign off.
That is where I'm feeling on this one.
Okay, so I'm going to try and give a really short answer.
It'll be a challenge.
Okay. I am both pessimistic and optimistic. Did you see the Oscars this year?
No, I don't watch the Oscars.
Cillian Murphy gave his Oscar speech for playing Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Right? Robert Oppenheimer, he was part of the team and one of the genius behind the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
Okay? And he said, we're living in Oppenheimer's world, which is true.
Yeah, no.
The big, big technology changes, like inventing a weapon that is so powerful that it has the ability to exterminate us, Mm-hmm. When Stephen Hawking died, absolute genius, no doubt about that, discovered a whole heap of stuff about black holes and all of that. But he said we're living in the most dangerous time, which is we have the technology to destroy ourselves, but we don't have the technology to leave the planet if we destroy it. Okay, so the planet will be fine, roughly, because billions of years the sun's going to explode in 5 billion years. So we've got 5 billion years on this planet, right? We've got to if we want to live for longer than 5 billion years, we've got to find a way to get off it. Anyway, that's slightly in the future.
This short answer's not short, is it?
But the whole thing is that we are in the hockey stick right now. Living in the 20th and the 21st century, we're in the hockey stick. At the end of the 21st century, we're going to top out at 11 billion people. That's it. We're not going to grow. We might shrink if we have some horrendous disaster like a
pandemic, which
is AI-generated poison that kills us all. But anyway, let's not. Sorry, God. Okay, we're going to try and be serious. We're going to top out at 11 billion. So we have to figure out how to live sustainably with 11 billion people, right? So and we're not living sustainably right now because we're digging shit out of the ground and burning it, and obviously it's changing the climate.
Aren't we using 1.25 Earths every...
Something horrendous. Like, we're not sustainable for 8 billion, so we're not currently at this trajectory which is linear. We're not going to be sustainable at 11 billion, certainly not. So we need to figure out a way. Either we change behaviour, and we all know how good we're doing. We're not very good at doing that. Or we have a tech solution, right? And AI
could do it.
So for that alone, we don't have time to get into bioengineering crops and all of that stuff. But for that alone, it could do it. And for that alone, I'm in.
You're giving it the sign off?
I'm giving it the sign off.
Oh, okay. So,
but in 10 years' time, if I'm a blob with no legs and I just with a VR headset strapped to me and I don't live in the real world, don't even get me started on simulation theory. If you want to know about simulation theory, Google it. Are we in the real world or are we in the Matrix? Elon Musk thinks we're in the Matrix. He does.
I do some days.
Neil deGrasse Tyson says it's 50-50. Even he says it's 50-50.
Oh my God. Okay, so this is the end of the AI episode.
Yeah, let's stop. Stop before I start spouting off more science fiction nonsense.
But if anybody has any thoughts on what we discussed and how you feel about AI, for the force for good, or whether it's out of control already, we'd love to hear from you.
Please do. And, there will be, forces for evil and forces for good, just like there have been ever since humans evolved. And, you just have to kind of lean into your better nature. Because we all have it within.
I love that you're hopeful.
So do I do. Maybe I'm just hysterical rather than hopeful because of my lack of sleep.
Maybe.
All right, on that bombshell, it's been a wonderful session. Thank you, Liz, for an enlightening chat.
So it's the sign-off from me, Liz Hawkins.
And it's the sign-off from me, Lydia Jones. See you next time. Well, Liz, that's another fine podcast in the bag. I hope you enjoyed the chit-chat and found something useful.
Follow us on socials at the Sign Off Podcast, where a new episode is out every 2 weeks. Send your questions and comments to signoffpodcast@gmail.com.
See you next time.